everyone, and welcome to another episode of Queer Opera Conversations. This is an informal chat with LGBTQIA artists and allies about how we can make the world a more interesting, equitable, diverse, colorful, and joyful place through opera. My name is Chuck Dillard, founder and artistic director of Queer Opera, and today I am really excited to welcome soprano Emily Kern to the program. Emily, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
You're welcome. So before we dive into some questions, I want to tell you guys, the viewers, just a little bit about Emily. Emily is a native of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, good old Texas girl. Went to U of H, otherwise known as University of Houston and Rice. She spent 2 summers in Des Moines as a young artist and was also to be a young artist in the esteemed Santa Fe program this summer, but obviously summer plans have changed for many of us. And one of the things that I'm excited to talk about a little bit later on is her passion for new works and non-standard repertoire. So Emily, anything you want to add to that brief bio so they know a little bit more about you?
That basically covers it. I've been in Houston, I think this is my 8th year. With my 4 years in undergrad, I took a year off and then was in grad school for 3 years. And so it feels like Houston is my home, and the arts community is just wonderful here. Obviously, can't do much in the arts right now, but it's a great community and a great place to be in for opera singers and a queer person. So I really love being here.
Great. Well, let's just jump into some general questions. And something I ask everyone is to tell me about the spark that got you started. How did you know, as a human being, that you wanted to make music with your voice?
So I can't think of a specific moment, but I grew up in a pretty musical household. My dad taught himself to play guitar, sings. My little brother plays and sings with him. And they are always making music. My mom can't carry a tune to save her life, God love her, but she loves to sing. And I remember being little and getting in trouble in school there's always music playing in my head, and I'd just be sitting there waving my head back and forth in class and feeling a teacher like put their hand on my head and stop it. So it's always just kind of been an integral part of who I am. I took that and I was in choir, as most of us singers usually are, in middle school and in high school. And in Texas, the choral system is very intense, very thorough. You learn really, really great skills in learning your music, languages, and being an efficient musician. So I did that, and I thought I wanted to be a choir director, and that's what I originally went to undergrad for, and then sort of got a hold of the opera bug and then went from there.
Right. So let's talk. This is not a question that I sent you, but let's talk about that transition from choir to opera, because we know those are sort of 2 different voices. How did you discover your opera voice and standing on stage, in a costume alone with a name as opposed to in a choir section?
Yeah, so that mainly came probably halfway through my undergrad degree. At UH, they're really great about, even if you're just going into choral education, you get your hour voice lesson. And I was developing my voice more, and I was in all of the opera courses and started having a lot of fun, even just being in the background, running around in a big dress. Or I think we did an elixir that was set in the 40s or 50s, and I was a plumber. And I have never had as much fun as I was playing plumber chorus girl with this like full on workers uniform and a little red towel. And it was just a fun way to express yourself and be somebody who you aren't. Sometimes in person, I can be kind of nervous and quiet, but on stage, you can just let loose. You can be a soprano having a fit, rolling around on the ground, screaming high notes. It's just fun.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some great female choruses in Elixir too, like with Janetta, and
Oh my gosh.
that's a lot of
Yes.
fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't think we left the stage that entire show. That was probably the That was a really fun course to be in. And at U of H, we did 4 operas a year. So
Oh,
we were
wow.
always in the opera rehearsal room.
Amazing. Um, so jumping ahead a bit,
Mhm.
to talk about what I brought up in your bio, you have a passion for new works. Can you talk about where that came from and some of your experiences,
Mhm.
and maybe how you see that being a part of your future?
Yeah, so my passion for that mainly started in undergrad. So I just said we did 4 operas, and each year at least one was always either in English, something modern, a new work. We did lots of Catan,
Mm-hmm.
lots of something was always new, and our opera director always said, I really want you to get the experience of learning not just a Mozart, not just something romantic, not bohème. And so that importance has always been instilled from day one. And my experience from then on has mostly been new works or stuff off the beaten track. I mean, one of the first roles I learned was an English adaptation of Anna Karenina, the Leo Tolstoy Russian novel. And that was like, I think it was my second role I'd ever learned, and it was long and really difficult, where the composer doesn't write in a key signature, and so you have to sit at the piano and figure it out. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fell in love with the process of tackling difficult music and finding a way to make it accessible. So
Awesome.
then in grad school, that's a lot of the experience I had as well, was lots of off the beaten track music. With this last season, we did a double bill, which included Taking Up Serpents, which is by Kamal Sankaram and Jerry Dye. And when we performed that, it had only been premiered 6 months prior. And so that was a really, really unique, great experience, getting to meet the composer and the librettist and talking about how they were influenced to create something, and then us only being the second people to really take a crack at it. And so
Right.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love doing things where you really can you can know that you're putting your stamp on something.
Hmm.
And there is, I mean, it's frightening because you don't have recordings necessarily to listen to and to mimic, but
Hmm.
you also know that you're really creating, and
Hmm.
that's a lot of fun. And so
Hmm.
you must also be a singer that can advocate for the importance of music theory and piano proficiency,
Yes, I say
learning new
that, and I'm
music.
not the. I know every time I talk to my mom and she asks what I'm working on, I'm like, Mom, I wish you would have just kept me in piano lessons. I see my friends, I pass by their practice rooms and they're playing along with their music, and I'm like, "Dut, dut, 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 dut." But thank God for the Texas choral system and solfege, or else I wouldn't have been able to learn anything. You should see I still have the PDFs of my Vocek score that has solfege, and like just trying to figure out how to learn how to
Wow,
keep things in my head.
you solfeged Wozzeck.
I did,
Good
which
for you,
probably
whatever it
sounds so
takes.
dumb, but that's what it works. And I could probably sing the whole thing tomorrow because it's
That's
stuck.
that's
That's just,
amazing.
you got to find your system, find what
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. So the title of this whole program is Queer Opera Conversation. So let's talk a little bit about queerness in opera.
Hmm.
Um, do you happen to recall a moment where you finally saw something on stage that you identified as queer? Like you had identified queerness in yourself. You had been looking at, Mimi and Rodolfo and Figaro and Susanna, and then all of a sudden you see something that sparks you. Does that is there a moment you can remember?
Well, I have to admit, I haven't really had that moment yet. And it's kind of sad. I know I'm young and I'm newish in the business, but I haven't seen much queerness in the art form itself. What I've
Mm,
seen is the community,
right.
administrators, my fellow singers. I can tell you the first time I felt comfortable and thinking, oh, my queerness has a place in this art form, was going to Des Moines Metro Opera for the first summer. Now, I didn't know what I was getting to going into the middle of the cornfields and
Hmm.
the Midwest. I even remember my girlfriend was driving up with me, and we had an ice cream social the first night. And I emailed the administrator, and I feel like every day I have to come out. And I said, so is it okay if I bring my girlfriend with me to the ice cream social? Just trying to throw it out there to see what community I'm about to be with for 7 weeks. And he was like, oh yeah, my boyfriend's going to be there. We're so excited to meet you. And then on the first day, we were all in a big circle, the entire company. And we all went around and they said, introduce yourself, what you're doing here, and your pronouns. I was like, what? They want us to say our pronouns in the Midwest? What is happening? And that Des Moines has a very, very special place in my heart because that's the first time I felt comfortable. I mean, they have an all gender restroom. I live in Houston. I'd never seen a multi-stall all gender restroom before. And I was like, this is not real. What? This exists actually?
Yeah.
So it's a really great welcoming place.
Yeah. That's amazing. So you're the first person that I've interviewed that has actually said, I haven't seen Queerness on stage yet.
Really. Mm-hmm.
And, point number one, that's why queer opera is around to sort of put that up there. But you're also just reaffirming how opera can be such a welcoming and affirming community for queer people. And
Mm-hmm.
Several weeks ago, I interviewed Licia Lucas, a trans singer, and she said, she doesn't care who she has to play on stage, as long as she gets to be as long as she gets to be herself off stage,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that I love about the arts is we can
Mm-hmm.
just be who we are. And yeah, great. So I don't have much information about Des Moines myself or experience, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled that they're so welcoming and inclusive up there.
They were actually, I lied. The first time I've never seen a full production of Fellow Travelers or anything, but last summer I saw a scene, and that was the first time that I ever saw any type of gayness in art form at all. I don't know why I didn't remember that. Yeah, that was the first time because then they were supposed to be doing it this summer as well, but obviously not. They can't
Right.
do that right now. But yeah, it's a really special place.
Yeah. Um, so I'm going to jump around a little bit on this list of
Mm-hmm.
questions, just talking about gayness on stage. So, I mean, Brokeback Mountain was a huge operatic event, coming from the movie, about two gay guys, as you know. But lesbian storylines are are not featured as often. And Patience and Sarah is the one opera that I can think of off of the top of my head that focuses on a lesbian storyline. Um, Pants rolls aside because the whole like Octavian and Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
Carabino, Countess, that's not really a lesbian storyline, although there's
Yes,
sort of a
bless you for saying that because people seem to confuse that and think, oh, mezzosexual. Oh, there's a mezzo playing a handle role. That's close. No, it's not the same
no,
thing.
no, it's not the same thing. Is there, and this might be a loaded question, but is there a reason why you think some composers or storytellers may not be compelled to tell lesbian stories?
You know, that's a great question. It's a difficult question. I think maybe the reason for that being is the same that people give for not hiring fat romantic leads is that it's not the typical, it's not the norm, it's not going to sell tickets. And I think the only way to combat that is visibility, is educating our audiences, is supporting young queer artists, writers, composers, and strengthening our connection with singers and writers and people who all have different stories, and try to encourage telling our stories. It's not just another show of a straight soprano and a straight tenor falling in love and one dies and that's opera.
Yeah,
There are just so many interesting stories that have yet to be told. And I don't think that'll happen until we have an increased sense of visibility from our community and from our allies in the community.
yeah. And I mean, it's not, the stories are obviously compelling, but I mean, it's the patriarchy, and the men are involved, and we need to educate and encourage more lesbian composers and
Mhm,
librettists,
exactly.
and and make room. We have
Hmm.
to. Yes, yeah, Bohème is going to sell tickets, and
And
Patience
I
and
love a
Sarah.
good bohem,
I love a good Bohème too. Do not
ma.
get me wrong. um, but we've got to we have to take some risks. And when I say
Hmm.
we, I mean like the opera companies out there that set the standard for what opera is, need to take some risks. And I kind of feel like we're at like a resetting place in the
Hmm.
industry where things are going to have to change. Um,
Exactly. I agree. I
so
mean, you already see that with the new online formats and content that opera companies are starting to explore. I mean, we have to adapt after everything, or we're not going to survive. So I hope this pause that we've had really makes people reevaluate what they want to see in their art form. And I know for me, it's made me reevaluate, what do I want to do? Like, I've graduated and now I'm trying to break out into an industry at this crux point. And what do I want to say? What projects do I want to be a part of? And so I hope that now that everyone's getting tired of their screen time, we can reevaluate what's important and what we have to say as artists moving
yeah,
forward.
yeah, that was also another question is what kind of world are you wanting to you said crux point, some people use jumping off point,
Mhm.
but you're at the start of your career. Like, what do you want the industry to look like? What kind of change do you want to be a part of? What kind of environment should opera be in 5 years? I mean, this is a loaded
Oh
question.
gosh.
So many things.
um,
Um,
well, if I could pick what I did personally, if I could draw it out on a map, I would want to do lots of premieres. I would love to be the Mike Mays of Sopranos, of the next 10 years of opera. It's just every new American thing, Mike Mays. It's just incredible the work that he does. I would love to do lots of Slavic. I love Slavic repertoire. Yennefer is
wow.
my favorite opera. I'm probably the only person who thinks that. I don't know. I think it's beautiful music. Um, but I would really love to live in the realm of new works. And I don't know what it's like to commission a piece or to work with a composer and get that ball rolling, but that's
Yeah.
something I hope to learn, maybe even start um, trying to connect with composers that I went to school with to see what can we do. We're both new in this industry. How can we learn from each other? How can we further our community? So
Uh, yeah.
that's what I'm hoping to do. We'll see. We'll see
That
what
is
happens.
that's fantastic. I think doing like a call for scores, a 10-minute opera scene that highlights some sort of lesbian storyline,
Mhm.
and having a dozen composers submit 10-minute scenes that you might, you know,
I know,
spark
how great would that
something.
be?
Yeah.
That it would be amazing just to go to the theater and see a story that represents me. And I know I have so many friends who feel the same way. Um, I remember the first scene I did in grad school. This is the first time I realized that, oh, I kind of have to leave a part of me at the door. In the rehearsal room was we were doing Bohème. We were doing a Bohème scene. Speak of Mimi. I was
Mhm.
singing Mimi. My friend was singing Rodolfo. We were doing the Act 3 quartet. And our director said, okay, just find a comfortable romantic embrace position where you're facing each other, but you can sing. And I think I like grabbed his hips and was standing there and he started laughing. I was like, what, why are you laughing? And he said, why are you grabbing my hips? And I was like, oh, well, she said, I didn't realize that my physical romantic language, when you say find something natural, isn't what represents the straight world that I'm on stage presenting. And so that was the first time I was like, oh, I have to learn like how to represent a completely different type of person. And I think that's so funny. Um, but I think about that a lot, that it would just be so nice to see or to be a part of a production that represents a similar story to me, or something even remotely close to the LGBT community.
Right. That's so fascinating. I've never even thought about, because I'm not a singer. I don't want to be a singer. Love working with singers, but even just how you touch someone i- is different based on. I mean, if you're Mimi and you're sort of the traditional feminine um,
Mhm.
character, um, yeah, how you touch a man is going to be different than how you,
No.
Emily, might touch your girlfriend.
Exactly.
That's so.
It was funny. I literally said, "Can we just do a master class on how straight girls like?" I was like, "Where do I put my hands? I don't. I suddenly don't know how to act. What is happening?"
Yeah, that's
But
amazing. So speaking of artists working in the industry, you had meant just going back to Mike Mays, you had mentioned. Um, so there are some really big names that are advocates for queer females, Jaime Barton being one. Um, who else do you look up to, or do you see in the industry as being a role model for queer women? Which could be people, you know, high up in the industry, or even people your own age that are also coming up. Um, any anyone you could point to?
well, I mean, as everyone will say, Jaime Barton has always been the pinnacle of queer visibility for me. I didn't even know when I was an undergrad. I remember telling my teacher, I want to be the first like lesbian opera singer to be out there in the world. And she was like, well, let's do some homework and find some other. And I didn't know about Pat Rissette. I didn't know, and I know Jaime doesn't identify as lesbian, but she really holds a lot of the weight of
Yeah.
our community and visibility on her shoulders, which is invaluable. I mean, I'm not a person who cries in front of other humans in public settings, but she came to Rice this past year, and I had a chance to talk to her after her little session that she did, and I went to say thank you so much for your visibility and what you do for our community, and I think it came out okay bye, and I ran to the bathroom and started crying because I just got so overwhelmed with realizing that this person is just a person, but they're so open and honest about who they are, and it's just so important, and I was so embarrassed, but God bless Jaime Barton. That's
Have
what I
you?
have to say.
I'm sure that you've seen the BBC video
Oh, who
of.
hasn't?
Oh my God. I mean, talk about crying.
Hmm.
When I know that I need to cry, I will pull that video up of her singing Rule Britannia and
Hmm.
just see all those flags, you know, in the arena, and it's just amazing to have an advocate like her. But you're right. I mean,
Exactly.
she is sort of singular. There are gay men all over the place in opera.
the Opera for me sometimes feels like a big club for white straight people and white cisgendered gay men, which I love everybody, but that's how it feels sometimes because you don't see trans voices, you don't see a lot of lesbian or any queer people of color. Like
Yep.
it's just it's there's a huge part of our community is missing. So I really appreciate Jaime Barton and all she does with her visibility and all of her social media, and always standing out, always using her platform um, to bring our community to the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah.
Another singer that I thought of though while I was talking was I just Zachary James. Zachary James. His name escaped me for a second. He is very vocal on his social media and everything he does, and he's a great, super, super kind guy. He was at Des Moines both years that I was there, and he's another person that I think of who is very active on social media and very just this is who I am. Get used to it.
Very
So
cool. I'll have to look him up.
yeah, yeah, you should definitely. He did a burlesque Voton show that had opera and dancing, and oh, you have to look it up. It's incredible. It was like a Voton with a sparkly eye patch and a G-string, and it was like the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Is it
Yeah,
on
you have
YouTube?
to. It's I don't know if it's on YouTube. I know it was on all of his social media on
Okay.
Instagram, but look him up on Instagram and you should be able to find it.
Okay. Burlesque Voton. I can't.
Yes.
Wow.
It was great. It was
Yeah.
really great.
So let's say 10 years from now, all gender barriers have been broken down in opera, and anybody can sing any role that they want to, which will not happen in 10 years, but we can dream. Is there a non-soprano role that you would just love to get your teeth into?
Mm. I've been trying to think about this. I have my favorites. It would be probably Peter Grimes.
Mm.
Um, there's a video that I watch of Sam Raimi singing the Boito Mefistofele
Hmm.
Ecco il mondo. Every time I
Hmm.
see that, I just wish I could do that. I just, with the big, like, muscular bass man with the, like, bass baritone skrelt. I
Yeah.
wish I don't think so much of characters that I want to do. It's the singers that I want to be able to emulate. If I could just
Yeah.
like feel what it is like to sing the way you do and sing your characters, I would love
Interesting.
that. Probably that.
Huh. Sam Raimi. All right. Well,
Uh-huh.
we'll see. We'll see if Queer Opera can do a production and you can be Zarastro
Got it.
or something.
I'll do my best.
All right. Awesome. Um, gosh, what else? Um, I mean, what have you been doing during quarantine? All that stuff. That's kind of a
Mm,
generic question. Let's see.
mm.
Well, so since we are in quarantine period, um, how are you doing with the art form and all of this time that we can't be on stage and gather? How is that going for you?
Well, it's been a bit difficult because I live in a small apartment and I can't sing longer than 15 minutes without like someone banging
Oh,
on the door next to me. And I'm lucky to have a job that I can continue to work throughout all of this. So that's kept me busy. I haven't been doing the sourdough starters, cooking, and all of that stuff because I can't do that. But but as far as singing, it's been really difficult. I've been struggling a bit just having graduated. I mean, I missed the last month and a half of school. I didn't do a recital. I missed out on my last concert performance I was supposed to do. And so it's been a bit difficult. But this past week, I've been trying to coax myself back into it. A guy that I work with is also a singer. He's a tenor, and we've started to talk more and more. Man, we miss singing. We miss um, just, and it's not even about being in front of people. I miss the community. I miss being in rehearsals and goofing around, and that's a part of the job, is going and acting and hanging out with your friends and telling fun stories. I miss that a lot. But I'm trying to get back into it. I'm trying to slowly get back into singing because I don't want to come out of quarantine in 2 months and have a frog
right,
it's like taken
right.
over my throat and I forget how to sing.
Yeah,
But just doing my best. I think that's all we can do right now is do what we can.
absolutely. So if any of our listeners do want to hear you sing, you have some videos online where they can find some clips of you.
Yes, I have a few things on YouTube and a few I have a clip of my Votsec on SoundCloud right now. I'm in the middle of making a website. I know I'm horrible on social media. I should already have one. All of my friends are like, "Where are your website? What are you doing?" But that should be out within the next week.
Awesome.
Um, so yeah, I have a couple things out there right now.
Great. Well, I will be sure to include links below, if this is what people do on YouTube, to make sure that they can find you and hear your amazing voice. So
Thank
um,
you.
I want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me and be a part of Queer Opera Conversations. Second to Rebecca Herman, my stage director for Queer Opera, who gave me Emily's name. Rebecca is very near and dear to my heart. Also, Dean Leroy Bynum and Bonnie Miksch at the Portland State College of the Arts. They support queer opera in every way possible. Also, the PSU Foundation. So, Emily, thank you again. Uh, Listeners, look for Emily Kern in the future once we get out of this quarantine. See her on stages around the country. I can't wait.
Thank you. And thank you for all of the incredible work that you're doing. You are setting a change. Thank you for giving us a place to talk. Thank you for giving me a place to have an opinion and talk about how I see the world and queerness and opera. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing so much.
You're very welcome. And thanks so much for listening, everybody out there in the world. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.